Hi there, I'm Cailen Ascher, and these are the Clarity Confessions. Every show, I sit down with top female entrepreneurs and get them to confess their best and most inspiring secrets for creating soulfully expansive success on their terms. If you're ready for a heaping dose of clarity, inspiration, and feel-good strategies to move you forward in life and business, get ready. It's time for our next confession.
Today on the show, we have Lacy Boggs. So if you want your blog to actually make an impact for your business, it starts with strategy. And Lacy is your go-to gal for that. She is a content marketing strategist, author of the best-selling Make a Killing with Content, and director of the Content Direction Agency. Lacy, welcome to the Clarity Confessions.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm thrilled to be here.
Yeah, I'm excited to dive into some conversation today, but I'd love to start out with just hearing a little bit more about what started you on this entrepreneurial path that you're now on.
Sure. It was actually a little bit of necessity. Back in, about 5 years ago now, I was an editor for a small magazine here in Colorado, and I got pregnant, and I was working, 60 plus hour weeks, terrible deadlines where we stayed in the office, until 2 and 3 in the morning. And I realized that was just not going to work with a baby. So I decided to try to work from home and do my own thing. And I was a food writer at the time. And so it seemed totally natural that I start a food blog, right? That makes sense. So I started a food blog, and I had really great success with the blog itself. I was able to build a list. I was able to build an audience. What I was not able to do is monetize it very well, because I think one big problem was that I picked the wrong audience. I picked moms on a budget. And here's a pro tip. Moms on a budget don't want to spend money. So it was difficult to sell anything to them, even like a $9.99 ebook. So I realized that wasn't working. I wasn't making any money doing that. And so I thought, well, I'm pretty good at this blogging thing, and I'm a pretty good writer. Maybe other people would pay me to blog. And guess what? They did. And it just, the minute I hung out my digital shingle, at first as a ghost blogger, it just took off. There were people that were very excited that sort of service existed. But as I grew, I found that my clients were asking me about strategy things, which I did not really know the answers to at the time. And so I took every course that was available. I read everything. I've probably read every post on Copyblogger's website to try to teach myself content marketing strategy. And as I did that, I discovered some holes in what I believed and what was being taught. And that was when I decided to kind of branch out and start teaching other business owners who, for whatever reason, didn't choose to hire out their blogging, how to do it for themselves. And so that's where we got to today.
That's awesome. I love hearing the evolution of businesses. So rarely do the women I speak with have the exact business that they had when they started, no matter how long they've been in business.
For sure. It's always a process.
Yeah, it definitely is. So before we move into more conversation, I have some rapid fire questions for you. Are you ready?
Yeah, go.
So when did you get clarity about your current business?
I think I got clarity. It was kind of a problem I realized that I was doing. So a problem I see new entrepreneurs make all the time is that they're blogging to the wrong audience. And I can recognize that because I was doing that. So when I was first a ghost blogger, I started writing my own blog about how to blog, and realized pretty quickly that people who were hiring me to blog for them didn't give a flying zucchini about how to blog. So I was talking to a completely different audience than I was selling to. And so it only made sense that I either change what I was blogging about or change what I was offering. And so that was kind of that aha moment where I was like, okay, this is where that leveraged side of the business can come in, and I can start creating trainings and resources for people who want to do the blogging themselves. So that was probably it.
Can you describe your business in like 10 words or less?
I'm not going to count, but I help small business owners create content that actually moves the needle on your business.
Oh,
as
that's
opposed
good.
to throwing spaghetti at the wall to see what sticks. Probably more than 10 words.
No, but pretty darn close, and I like it. So we'll let it slide.
We'll let it go. Okay, good.
Why do you love your work?
I've been a writer since before I could hold a pencil. And so I love to write. I love to talk about writing, and being able to get paid to help other people expand their message and help even more people is thrilling to me.
So what makes you feel the most successful in your business?
I think what makes me feel most successful is being able to set my own schedule. For so long, working for other people, it was like, be here, do this, do that. And now it's all on me, so I deliberately limit how much time I work so I can be with my daughter. I can take vacation. I can, do all these things. I guess the other little thing that made me feel really successful was when I was able to hire a house cleaner. That used to be my big bar for I will have made it when I could hire a housekeeper.
That's awesome. Yeah, that was one of my things too, that I was denying myself for so long. And finally I was like, yes, this is actually for my business.
Yes.
Yeah.
I felt really guilty about it for a while, and then I gave that up as a bad habit, and I love it.
Awesome. Good for you. So what personal practices or self-care do you make time for regularly?
I am actually kind of bad at this, but I think that the one thing I do make time for every single day is I do morning pages when I get up in the morning. So I get up earlier than everybody else in my house, and make the coffee and sit downstairs in the quiet, in the dark, and write longhand. Usually 3 pages if somebody doesn't come down and need something before I get done. But I think that really is a self-care practice for me. Sometimes it's just whatever's on my mind. It's like meditation, like a writing meditation. Other times it's, something for fun, like writing about my fiction projects or something. So I think that's what I do really regularly, and I'm good at.
That sounds like a nice practice.
Mm-hmm.
What is the best thing about being an entrepreneur?
The best thing about being an entrepreneur is when that little email notification dings that says, you have money.
Yeah. Isn't that cool?
It's the best. I love that.
Yeah. What's the hardest thing about being an entrepreneur?
There's no one to pass the buck to. So when something goes wrong or doesn't work the way it should, or I miss a deadline, or I miss a revenue goal, there's nobody else to blame it on. Not that I'm a huge fan of blaming, but it really is humbling when it all has to come back to you.
Yeah, for sure. Okay, so we reached the last question. You're doing great.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
What is one word that sums up your business mission?
Strategy.
That's a good one. That makes sense for you.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, awesome. So you mentioned that, and I'd love to just dive into this, because I think so many people, probably their ears perked up when you said that people are blogging to the wrong audience. And I hope you can just go into that right now and bring some clarity to it, because I think a lot of people are now wondering, oh my God, is that me?
I see this a lot with brand new bloggers or brand new entrepreneurs. They have been told somewhere along the line that they should write what they know. And so they start writing about their business. And that's all well and good, except when the people who want to know about your business are not the people that you're selling to. Mm-hmm. So a great example of this I just had recently, I have a client who he does fashion. So he's in the fashion world, okay? He designs clothing. And he wanted to blog about the entrepreneurial side of the business. And I told him, I said, that's great. I'm sure you have a lot to say about that. Because he wanted to talk about how do you choose vendors, and what do you do when a prototype fails, and all these things. And I said, I'm sure you have a lot to say about that. I don't think the blog on your fashion website is the place to do it.
Yeah.
Maybe you want to be on Medium. Maybe you want to be on Forbes or somewhere like that, and we can do that, and we can get you on there for sure. But, is that what your customers want to hear about? And maybe in an offhand way it is. Like, if he were to talk about how the prototype failed and they had to go back to the drawing board and start something else and blah, 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 that would probably be interesting to his customers, because it shows all the attention to detail and whatever that went into that product, right? But if he's going to shoot at it from an entrepreneurial standpoint, that's less interesting to the people who just want to buy clothes.
Exactly.
So you have to make sure that you're talking to your customers, which seems like a really basic thing, but a lot of times people miss it. And like I said, I was guilty of it as well. I was writing what I knew, which was how to blog. That's what I was interested in because that's what I was learning. That's what I wanted to talk about. But like I said, the people who were hiring me to blog didn't care. Yeah. So I had to pivot a little bit.
Yeah, something that I've found a lot is that people blog to their peers rather than their clients or their customers who are often not their peers or not yet. And that's, we blog or write about at this really high level because we're so inundated and so consumed with the knowledge that we know, but we don't realize that we aren't necessarily hitting on the really basic points that people are needing from us.
Mm-hmm. I think that's indicative of a larger problem, which is that people don't connect their blog and their content in general to their sales process. And so they don't really think about how what they're saying or what they're blogging about connects to the sale. And if you want your blog to support your business, it has to connect to the sale. Otherwise, it's just a journal, which is okay too, but don't expect it to support your business,
Yeah. Oh, that's so fascinating. So when you work with people, what are some things you do with them to help them link what they're writing about and just sharing in a free way to that sales process so that it makes sense?
Sure. So I always encourage people to work backwards. So, you think about what is your goal for this week, this month, this quarter, whatever we're looking at. So if your goal is you're launching something in November, we're talking you and I now in September. So if we're launching something in November, then you have, a month and a half, maybe 6 weeks to support that launch. And so you can work backwards from that launch to create content that will get people thinking about that problem that you're solving. And that's how, and maybe you also offer a freebie, a download that gets them basically on an interest list. So if they download this freebie that's all about this problem that you're solving with your product, then they're interested in that problem, right? They're interested in solving it. So then that becomes a targeted interest list that you can email and sell to more effectively. So, but it all starts with working backwards from whatever that sale is. If you have an evergreen product or service, it might be about, well, I really need to fill up my call sheet for this month. Great. So what we're going to do is we're going to make sure we're showing the benefits of getting on a call with you and putting a link to get to that call in your blog post. So it's all about working backwards from whatever that goal is.
Yeah, it's so simple and it makes so much sense.
Right.
But I think it's a step that people miss because they don't see that they're directly connected. It's like, oh, my blog is the free place where I give content to my community, and then there's this other category of people that buy from me, and we don't see how to effectively move them through that process because people often need to be handheld and kind of coached through that process to become buyers.
Absolutely. I often talk about it's like putting stones in a river. So if your customer's on one side of the river and the sale is on the other, the content are the stones you put in the middle to get them from one side to the other. And if you put too few, they're not going to make it. If you put them in all different directions, they're not going to make it. You have to lead them very carefully in a straight line from point A to point B.
I like that analogy. The visuals are always very helpful. So now that we dove right into the strategy piece,
the meat.
Exactly. But I'd love to dial it back a little bit and just hear from you. What did your first year in business really look like, as you're trying to figure it out? And, what advice would you have for someone who's maybe in that first year right now?
I mean, my first actual year as an entrepreneur was pretty grim. People talk about having a 6-figure year. I'm pretty sure I had a 2, maybe 3-figure year just from that. I was doing a little freelance writing on the side, but just from the actual business side of things, it was terrible. And I think the biggest thing I learned was twofold. First of all, people can be interested in what you're saying, but not what you're selling. And that was a big aha moment for me because I was attracting an audience that was looking for free information. And there's nothing wrong with that, but it's very hard to sell to an audience that's only looking for free information. And the second half of it was that it's okay to pivot and you need to do it quickly. You know, you need to be able to say, okay, this is not working. I need to try something else, instead of being so attached to it that you just keep going and going and going when it isn't working.
So if someone is in that place and thinking like, oh my God, I think I might be talking to people who are really interested in what I'm saying, but not what I'm selling, how do you recalibrate and allow that pivot to happen successfully?
I had to find what people were actually interested in buying. So what was that trigger that was so important to them that they were willing to put money on it? And it was also about finding a different audience for me. So I tried, you know, somebody at the time gave me the advice that it was really hard to sell enough to make a living at $9.99 a pop, you know, unless you've got a huge list or huge audience, that's really difficult. So they were saying, you know, you need to do something at a higher price point. So I tried selling consulting, or like coaching basically, through my food blog, and nobody wanted to buy because I had attracted this audience that was interested in free information. So I thought, well, who is willing to buy what I have to sell? And I had to do almost a complete 180, you know, completely switch. I said, okay, what's my expertise? I have this expertise in food, but I also have this expertise in writing. Let's try that. And that was a skill that was much easier to sell than, you know, I was trying to sell ebooks about how to plan meals and you know, be organic on a budget, which I was passionate about, but, you know, it wasn't resonating enough for people to buy it.
Yeah, that's it's very interesting, and I think it's something we don't often hear from entrepreneurs is the transformation and the pivots that happen along the way. I mean, in my own life, I've been an entrepreneur for almost a decade now, and I did not start out doing anything similar to what I'm doing now, but because I gave myself permission to pivot, as you did, I was able to find what was really resonating, not just for me, but also with the people I was trying to serve. And finally, when I had clarity about that and found the right mixture, then things really took off. And it sounds like that's exactly kind of what happened for you too.
Yeah, for sure. There's a great Stephen King quote. I think it's from his book on writing. And he says, you have to kill your darlings. And he's talking about like sentences in fiction or plot points or something that you love, but just doesn't work for the story. I think it's true though for entrepreneurs as well. You know, you may have a product or even a business model that you love, that you're super passionate about, but it's not working for whatever reason. And you have to kill your darlings and keep moving.
Yeah. And you'll be all the better for it too. I think we're so scared of change and so scared of failing. But if we're in a place where we already feel like a failure, there's nothing
like,
really.
There's nowhere to go but up. At that point.
Really. It's just like, just go for it. You've got nothing to lose. Yeah. So what is some really great advice that you've received on this entrepreneurial path and you know, that might be helpful to the listeners that are tuning in right now?
I think the best advice I received was about the idea of a minimum viable product. I've seen a lot of advice and courses and things like this recently where it's like all in and you produce this incredible huge thing and it's a 10 module course and 15 hours of video and you have to have a 3 webinar series to launch it and all this stuff, right? And that was so overwhelming to me when I was getting started in making courses and products. But the idea of a minimum viable product, like what's the smallest thing you can teach that people will pay for? And then build a product around that. And that was my first product and it sold like hotcakes and I'm still selling a version of it. It's iterated over the years, but that's still like one of my best-selling products. And so putting together like what is the smallest thing I can teach and then get it out there and sell it and test it and see how it works and then iterate and keep going. Like you don't have to have the big, huge, amazing, whatever you want to say, centerpiece of your business right off the bat. What you need is something that people will buy. The end.
Yes. Yeah. And also, thinking about it, it just makes so much sense to kind of test the waters on this small scale and refine your processes and your systems and figuring out the sale of it and everything before you put all this time, energy, and money into the big thing, which if there's things that are missing or things that need to be changed, it's going to be so much more of an effort to do so instead of just tweaking this little product that you created.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, in its first iteration, it was just audio files and a transcript and a worksheet, and it was simple, but people got the value out of it. It was all there, but I didn't have to have like a huge, beautifully produced video and launch sequence and all that kind of thing.
So what are you most excited about right now? Like, what's on the horizon for you in your business?
I am most excited about kind of what comes next in the online space. My personality is very much an innovator. And I was at the Quiet Power Strategy Summit in May, I guess it was. And Brianne Dick was there, and she gave a talk, and one of the things she said that stuck in my head was she said that she believes we are approaching the death of the course. And I don't know if you've been seeing this in your business or in your clients' businesses or wherever, but I've definitely been seeing it where people are saying, I just can't buy another course. I can't do one more thing. I don't have time, or I don't have money. I have all these courses sitting on my computer that I haven't done. And so I think Brianne has a really good point. And so it started me thinking, like, what's next? And so what I'm going to try this fall is a beta version of my Content Intelligence Academy course where we will do it live together in one day. And so rather than having it be dripped out over, a certain number of weeks, we'll cover all of the modules in one day. You'll have me live the whole time, and you'll walk away at the end of the day with your next quarter or 6 months of content planned out with a strategy. Done.
That's awesome. Yeah, I just actually interviewed Brianne for the show.
Oh, great.
Yeah, she's awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, I love that idea. I think that's really cool. And I have experienced that same thing with people just saying, oh, I'm inundated by all this course material and I'm halfway through 5 things. And, and there's such a lack of a sense of accomplishment when you're in that phase that it feels really uncomfortable to have all these unfinished things sitting around.
For sure. And a lot of times people need some kind of deadline or accountability to keep them going and to get them actual results. So that's what I'm excited about right now, getting actual results for people.
That's fantastic. So before we conclude, let people know where they can find you. Like, what's the best way to connect with you?
Sure. I'm at lacyboggs.com. That's where everything is. There's a blog with lots of free info, and there's my free library if you're interested in learning more about content marketing for yourself. I also hang out on Facebook a lot, and you can find me there as well. So
awesome. Well, Lacy, thank you so much for being on the show, for sharing all your insight. And there were so many tips. I always take notes during the show so I can reference back, and we've got like a page of them. So
awesome.
We've got a lot of good stuff that we covered in the last 20 minutes. So thank you so much.
My pleasure. Thank you for having me.
Take care.
Hey ladies, I am back and I have got something super exciting to share with you. After enjoying a beautiful, soulful maternity leave with my new baby girl, my 2-year-old daughter, and my husband, I am again reopening the doors for one-on-one coaching. I'm taking on a very small handful of select one-on-one clients, 4 clients to be exact, for summer coaching sessions, and I wanted you to be the first to know. So if you are ready to partner with a coach who can help you transform your big vision into a clear plan of strategic, feel-good action and create success on your terms, I want to hear from you, and I would love to explore working together this summer to set you up for a fantastic 4th quarter and unprecedented 2018. So if that sounds good, you can apply now at CailenAscher.com/summer sessions.